Thanks for joining us today for MasterCoaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz and our after show Buzz Reaction. I'm Ruth Nelson, joined by Hall of Famers Mick Haley, Bob Bertucci, and Brian Gimolero, bringing you the most current issues and trends in volleyball. Our weekly news show has leaders in our sport provide their perspective on the questions that are asked, along with the discussion on topics that are current and ones that are affecting all of us. Our news flash: USA Volleyball has selected the 28 student athletes from 15 universities that will train in Anaheim as part of the 2021 USA Volleyball Women's Collegiate Team. Want to make a difference? Remember to renew your AVCA membership. This one organization that represents all coaches at all levels when lobbying for changes that are needed in our sport. You can make a difference by registering at avca.org. Last week, we had rules of the game for our master coaches, and they discussed rules, trends, and fads with only 3 minutes to provide their expertise. Well, it was obvious that was not enough time. But today's show, we will be discussing with volleyball officiating experts, and they will provide their interpretations based on their knowledge, experience, and their present position in our sport. So here we go, heading over to Austin, Texas with former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who introduces our guest today. Mick?
Thank you, Ruth. And I'm sorry you couldn't have been here before the show started, because this blew up way bigger than we had thought. We have 4 distinguished members of the Professional Association of Volleyball Officiating with us today, and all with most of us coaches have memories from being involved in contests with, and this like old home week for sure. And nobody forgets anything from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, or the 2010s. And so this show is really special because we are an information show, and we really strive to bring new and different things to our listeners every week. This one, though, is long overdue, I think. We've needed a platform for our officials. They get second guessed every week, not only by us, but everybody else. And they never have a platform to get back and explain how they make these decisions and what they do. And we have 4 of the most distinguished people in either training officials, in officiating, in sitting on the rules committees, or giving input in a number of different ways. And I'm going to ask these folks to introduce themselves so you can really understand who they are, what they're responsible for right now. And then Joan Powell's really taken over this whole thing before we've ever started, so we'll let them run with it. Go ahead. I think, Ann, you're up first.
Sure. Hi, I'm Ann Pufahl. I'm the NCAA Secretary, Rules Editor. I'm also the director of the NCAA PAVO National Clinics, and I'm the coordinator for 3 Division I conferences, the Big 12, the Summit, and the Sun Belt.
Oh, wow.
Hey.
All right. I'm Joan Powell, and retired official from long ago. As Mick, you know, it's nice to hear Mick do the kumbaya. It's nice to come back and go, oh yeah, like we're friends. But seriously, I appreciate you taking us on, because I understand that y'all were talking about us last week and the rules. And as my husband always says, you got to get all the liars in the same room. So perfect timing for the 4 of us to get in here. Back to introduction, Joan Powell with PAC-12 and Mountain West conferences. Happy to be on this call. I do a little high school officiating because I'm free on Tuesdays. So Brian, you take it.
I'm Brian Hemelgarn. I'm an international referee, and I've also worked a number of men's and women's NCAA national championships, including the one the men's championship that we just finished here 3 weeks ago. And I'm also the director of rules and line judge exams for PAVO.
Great.
And hi, I am Kaili Kimura. I am a multi-sport Division I official in volleyball and basketball. I work for 5 conferences in volleyball at the Division I level, and also 7 for basketball. And I just recently worked as a second ref, the R2, for the national championship game in Omaha.
Fantastic.
Great.
Well, that's really great to have all of you with us. You know, the show is titled Rules, Trends, and Fads. You have some issues though with rules right away, I think, or at least interpretations of plays. Joan, can I just turn it over to you and let you
Sure.
run with it?
Right. And I think we'd like to share with the audience two major concerns right now. Mick and Brian, I know you oh too well that you would like to talk nothing except ball handling, second ball. Here's the deal. We're not going to spend much time on the, I think Ann can tell us the percentages of the survey. It's very low in division 1, 2, and 3 about changing the rule from the second contact looking like the first contact, as long as it's directed toward a teammate. So Mick, if you had your druthers, you would probably want the word spin put in the rule book. And you know what? I'd have 25 more years on the court if spin were in there. But remember when you put in spin, Brian Gimolero, the technician, because I used to love watching your warm-ups, that orchestrated warm-up. But here's the deal. If you put in spin, when you teach a run through, it's got spin, so it's got to be double. Just saying. All right, so let's get off that right now and talk about two other major concerns. I explained to Mick that we actually put together, Ann is in charge of clinics. Brian is a clinician, I'm a clinician, as is Ann. And so we go around the country, PAVO, thanks for saying that, not pavo, Mick, because pavo means turkeys in Spanish. So Professional Association of Volleyball Officials, it puts on clinics, 30 of them every summer, just to update folks, and it's a 4-hour clinic. Julie Volk and I were in charge of ball handling. I'm so tired of talking about ball handling. It's our balls and strikes. It's our block charge. It makes us crazy. Video does not help us. We've got a wide spectrum. Let them play, Mick, to call everything on the other side, Brian. Okay. And so it's just really a difficult topic to please everybody. So when you get Mick and Brian in the gym, and I'm assigned to that match, or Brian and Kaili have that match, no one's going to win here. I mean, it's just, just let them play. Oh, you got to call that stuff, and they want it really tight. And so I put together I'm going to share this list with you because I think it's important for the folks to see. And this will be put on our website. You'll be able to see the whole 2-hour Zoom call with these people. Hugh McCutcheon from Minnesota, Keith Barnett from the Air Force Academy, Tom Black from Georgia, Kim Chernus from Cal San Bernardino, who just won the national championship in Division II, and Joe Lynch from Iowa State, assistant coach to Christy, Chris Lamb from Wichita State, Penny Lucas White from Alabama State, and Sonia Tomasovic from ASU, and then Matt Troy from Johns Hopkins University, and he was a Division III national champion. And it was fabulous to put those people together. But what we did was we gave them 14 videos of 3 topics, and we're going to talk about 2 of them. And I'm going to give it over to Ann, so that she's the Secretary of Rules editor, and the gospel's got to come from her, even though interpretation may be different from Brian to Kaili, from match to match, from set to set, from conference to conference. But we try to keep everybody on the straight and narrow as best as possible. So the 2 subject matters, we gave them 14 videos and a survey. I'm telling you, there was hardly any consensus with these 10 coaches, which was interesting, but they were willing to kind of cuss and discuss, if you will, about maybe the verbiage, coach speak, what words are trigger words, what are actions out there that a student athlete is doing that can kind of help us either rein in the power tip, which is one, or understand block versus first contact. And so I think that Ann, it would be best maybe to show that video first, and then you take it away. So this you may have seen in the championships. Baylor athlete doesn't penetrate, doesn't have a completed block, and it comes on her side. What's she going to do with it?
Oh, stop.
There, Ruth.
Stop.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So I'd love to know what the coaches on online right now think. Is that a block or is that a first contact by the Baylor player?
Well, I'll go with that. From the back, it looks like a block, and then she had a first contact.
Looks like a double hit to me, 2 hits for the same player.
I thought it was impressive that she used her right hand and then her
Yeah,
left.
yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Well, let's take a look. Here's the 3 things you have to think about for it to be a legal block. Is she near the net? Clearly. Is the ball above the height of the net, and is she above the height of the net?
Yeah.
Yes. So now you have to determine, is she deflecting the ball from the opponent back to the opponent, or is she making a playing action on it? And technically by rule, you could say, no, that's a block and then first contact. But I can also see where some people might think right there, she was trying to set the ball back to the opponent. And now you kind of get to the hard part of our rule. Kaili and Brian, what do you guys think?
Well, I say she needs to learn to set it higher so she can jump up faster. No.
I would have called that a block and then the first team hit. I would have allowed play to continue.
Agreed. I believe in terms of the definition of a block, it fits that definition. And to me, she could redirect it back to the other side since it came from the other side originally. So and her hands are clearly above the height of the net.
So what would have happened, ladies and gentlemen, if she had gone up in the blocking position and actually set that ball to herself, came down and hammered it?
That would be 2 hits.
Would it? Because the definition of the block is she's above the net, she's close to the net, she's defending, she just defends with some extreme skill, and then she goes up and hits the second ball. Following what you're saying, I would think that would be legal.
Well, and you know what, Mick? That's the reason why coaches like to bark at officials, and officials have a really tough job using their best intuition to determine, was that block or was that? Because you're right. If she's strong enough to pretend to block straight up and then set herself, I suppose that could happen too. I mean, what you also want to think about is if another player played it, would it be the second contact or the first contact? If she wasn't the one to play it, would that change your mind, Brian or Kaili, if that was a block or not?
It would not for me. You know, one thing in our training that has some verbiage that kind of helps me in determining exactly the question that Coach Haley just asked was about the deflecting the ball or intercepting the ball, which is part of the definition of block. But one thing that helps me just determine between a first hit and blocking is, were they directing the ball? Directing versus deflecting. Directing implies a playing action. And so I probably would argue here, she's not directing the ball, she's trying to deflect it or intercept it. So that little bit of verbiage sometimes helps me in these tough kind of plays where she's meeting the definition of a blocker by reaching higher than the top of the net and she's near the net. Then the last part, deflecting versus directing, is something that I try to use when I'm making that judgment.
And Brian,
to address,
go ahead, Kaili, you go.
I was just saying, and to address what Mick said about a set would be directing versus deflecting. So in this case, I also would agree that this is a deflection versus a direction.
Well, help us understand directing, though, because she seems to be trying to direct the ball back over the net. She's just getting it on her downward flight and misses it. That's it. The intent is not to deflect. The intent is to direct here. Watch her wrists and everything go forward. That's line of force straight through the ball. I think Brian's definition would indicate that, you know, she's trying to direct the ball. So this would be maybe a double hit.
Well, Mick, let me just interject here about intention. The intention has never been in the rule book, and we have to be careful of that word. So regardless of what she's doing, poor timing, misjudged, whatever her athleticism is in this play, she did what she was supposed to do, and that is go up and deflect it. It comes from an opponent, which is definition of a block, has to come from an opponent, and then she kind of paintbrushes it. Right? The ball comes and she's on her way down. So it's not that like we have any sympathy or empathy for a student athlete. It's just that she has posed herself as a blocker. She just was unsuccessful. And
I
so
agree with you. She posed herself as a blocker, but I don't agree that she's deflecting the ball. She's directing the ball with this action.
mhm.
I'm not talking about intent. I just
Right. Right. And the other point that we try to train with is we talk about loading your arm. So when you load your arm, that becomes an attack. Both hands are up and she, she just kind of.
If I may
Any,
interject,
any words in the rule book? I mean, years ago, I remember there was some verbiage about active blocking.
Anne?
No, and of course, my rule book is 6 steps away, so I'll be right back. Keep talking.
Okay, okay, we've got it. One more minute on this
It does
particular
say,
one. Otherwise,
yeah,
we'll never get through with the show.
Okay,
A block
here's
attempt is the action of blocking without touching the ball. That's a block attempt. So the action of blocking
Mhm.
is
Yeah,
in the
so I mean,
definition.
she's clearly making an action of blocking, in my opinion.
Yeah. So Bob, you make a good point, because we've got Mick on one hand and Bob on the other. And if this is called against you as a double, Mick is happy as a clam, and you're not. So what we have to do is train both the R2 and the R1, especially if we have headsets and the R1 can speak to the R2, that I noted this as a block. This is my judgment, and it can't be challenged, with CRS, because that's not within, the 5 challenges.
Challengeable, right?
But yeah, the only thing you could do is, did she touch it or didn't she? But that's for another day. So Anne, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I just thought it was interesting. The panel of coaches Joan mentioned were four of them said it was a block, and 7 of them thought it was a first contact.
Mhm.
So
if I may interject, I'm not as concerned. That's an unusual play, and it's a really difficult ball. By the way, it should have been dug. It was hit 4 miles an hour. But my concern about many rules is for everything, not just rules, for all parts of sport, is that we're always concerned about some formula. We want a formula so that we have, it's all decided for us. And there's no such thing as a formula that it will always work. It's just, I've heard all kinds of rules, and I'm glad that the referees are so versed in those rules, but the play is play, and you need an interpretation, or it's not going to fit into rules. This play is very difficult. Like you said, which rules, how do you interpret that? And I just think that the game is the game, and we need to be able to say, this definitively. I would have barked if it went against me, but I would have let it go. I don't know if I thought that was just a simple play. I didn't realize it was so controversial.
Okay, Anne, okay, let's go. Anne's got to go to her second, because we're almost 5 minutes from the end of the first half.
All right, Ruth, I'm on this. So the other concept or concern with these 10 coaches and with officials across the country is about throwing the ball. We have a definition of catch throw, the prolonged contact, coming to rest. That verbiage is kind of gone. So I guess maybe, Anne, if you want to take it away and ask the coaches on the panel what they thought, and then throw it to the referees if this should be called.
should this be called, coaches?
Yeah.
What do you think?
In 1970, no.
The throw?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you have to call that.
yeah.
So you thought prolonged contact or redirection of the ball while in contact with the hand?
It's a direct follow through down on the ball. This- We're back to 1969 with John Stanley and John Ahlstrom coming back from the World Championships in men's volleyball and just changing the whole game for the way we taught defense and played defense for men.
And 68 and 64 with Mary Jo and Marilyn, and them not, some doing it and Patty Bright not doing it.
Yeah, it's very difficult to change your defensive skills when this comes. You have to position your people differently, and you have to use different techniques many times.
So here's my concern with it, Joan. This young lady is clearly taking the ball from the right side of her body, all right, and taking it all the way to the left side of her body. And I used to hear that as being the guide for officials. If it stayed within your shoulders, all right, then it was not going to be called as a throw. But she's clearly taking the ball from outside her right arm all the way to outside her left arm. And if we're going to play that way, that's fine, except that my concern is that we start to get into what looks like jungle volleyball, where you see it out in the backyards where people just have no skill at all and they just grab a ball and throw it.
Right. And Bob, and remember too, we're watching slow-mo after slow-mo. I mean, it's instantaneous that this R1 has to make a decision. And he's going by what he sees on TV, videos provided by Ann and the clinicians. What's the parameter here? And I will tell you, this was called. And I think, Ann, do you have the numbers there for the 10 coaches? And then we'll talk to the officials.
Yeah, it was actually 11 coaches, 9 said illegal, 2 said legal. And they were saying, well, the 2 that said it was legal thought the ball stayed in front of her and she just bent her wrist, that she didn't carry it. I agree with the illegal. I think this needs to be called. I almost think the way the game's going, we need to rein in some of these power chips, because with the athletes touching over 11 and getting up over the block, putting balls down, you're right, Mick, you can't defend that.
My belief is that the only negative about this, Bob's point is interesting. My answer is she just uses her arm. So the ball's in her arm too long. If she just used her wrist and kept her arm high and just used her wrist, but she pulls the ball down, you can see it right there. Look at how long her arm was being used. And if it wasn't her arm and just her wrist and her arm remained high, then I think that I would have called this, but I think I don't want to outlaw the tip. I just think that she does it wrong.
Well, I was going to say something too. The shoulders, to me, gives a different type of indication, because if she would have kept her shoulders in an angle and did it with this instead of doing the whole upper body.
Yeah, I just believe it's the arm. You can't use your arm.
Brian, Kaili, what would you call as an official?
To me, it is a caught or thrown ball as well, prolonged contact. The tough part is, like we're all saying, and what a lot of surveys will show is it's so subjective and it happens so quickly. So I think a lot of the key points that you all made with shoulders and the arm will help us identify more consistently what we're going to call as a prolonged contact, caught or thrown ball versus not.
Yeah, I agree with Kaili on that, and don't really have anything to add. It looked like a thrown ball to me. And
I think the words prolonged contact are very good. I think you should keep those words. I think instead of trying to describe the actions, the prolonged contact is what is negative to the way we play the game. This is not a catch and throw game.
And Mick, you have been on the rules committee, so you know what the climate is in the room. Yeah. And the Division 2-3 folks want it a little more strict. And so this would be a no-brainer for them. I will tell you, in the discussion with this coaches panel, Hugh McCutcheon from Minnesota did say that whatever panel he is on, they are absolutely talking about open hand tips at the FIVB level being illegal. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a topic.
Doug Beal is very strong about that, I believe. I believe I'm correct in quoting him. He wanted to outlaw the tips 20 years ago. Open hand.
Yeah. Right. So she's got a lot on her plate, just these two topics alone that she has to present with video. Is this where collegiate volleyball wants to go? And Ann, you can speak to the state of the game. All of these coaches thought the NCAA collegiate women's game is in a good place right now. So did they agree with the 2-9 vote that possibly we need to rein it back in? I think so. And so that gave us a little bit of thought process. And anything more on that?
No, I completely agree that this is something the committee is going to talk about, maybe from a training standpoint, more of a point of emphasis, because the rule says specifically prolonged contacts are illegal. It's rule 16.2.3, sorry, 14.2.1, prolonged contacts. So that's in there, but we've been hearing from several Division I coaches about, they're calling it a jam, a tip that's a jam, where the athlete goes up, waits for see where the block is, and then just puts the ball to whatever spot isn't there. And I have a few videos of that. It's not prevalent yet, but I think it's something we want to stop before it becomes prevalent and keep that out of the game.
Can I make a point here? And this is just for the officials. I would not have argued the block call that we were going back and forth on. I wouldn't have argued that after you showed it until one of you defined what was happening. And once you used words, I got a picture and I thought the words did not describe the picture. And that's the only reason that I debated that, which gets me to the point, how you define something could cause much of the discussion back and forth without just letting it define itself. Because the play, Brian kind of was going in this direction. The play dictates, we know it was an attempt to block because they were up there blocking. But when you get to, were they directing or deflecting, now that's an interpretation thing, and that takes away from the whole play. It's like teaching a fundamental. You say, were they trying to pass the ball? Yes, but they didn't have it on their outside hip, or they didn't have their platform right, or that's where it breaks down. So maybe when you do these clinics, you have to be careful about the definition and that, instead of recognizing the play. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it's really good, Nick, because the last thing we want to do is tick you off even more by just, no, really, by saying, hey, coach, the R1 thought it was a block, and then just walk away. Or something condescending like, you have to have these 3 ingredients in order to meet the definition of a block, blah, 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 and be kind of rule book oriented. I think we just have to we have to know that the concern was you had a differing opinion, but we got to back it up. The rationale has to be succinct, and you don't have to buy it, but I have to feel pretty comfortable as a coordinator that Kaili or Brian went to you with these words and said, it met the definition of a block, we're going to play on.
Okay, hold that thought while we go to a few marketing things. Book your Master Coaches custom in-person or virtual clinic today by heading over to our Instagram, click on our bio, and click on the Master Coaches link. If you ever wanted a fantastic one-day clinic near Abilene, Texas, join us June 5th by registering at AbileneYSA.org. If you would like to be on our guest list in Buzz Reaction After Show, please click on the link in our Instagram, want to be a guest, and you'll not only be on for our updates, your name will appear on our guest appearance. Remember, our weekly Buzz shows are on YouTube channel. Go directly to Instagram. Follow us on Facebook, Volleyball Master Coaches, Instagram and Twitter, VB Master Coaches. And a special shout out to our partners, SNA Sports and Baden Sports. And thanks to our content providers, NFHS, JVA, Coaches Insider, AVCA. Stay on Facebook Live after John closes our show today and join our Master Coaches as we continue with our 4 guests today. Now let's go to our Buzz and Buzz Reaction digital partner, Dr. John Foreman, who will update us on his most recent interviews.
Thanks, Ruth. John is on vacation right now, despite being here. So no recent interviews, although I did just do a podcast yesterday for somebody else. So I guess I'm not entirely out of content mode. But I've got 1,300 posts on coachingvb.com with, I think, 26 podcasts and 50-something coaching conversations from last year. So there's plenty of material. Like I said, coachingvb.com or Coaching Volleyball on Facebook, and you can find it all. All right. Is that good, Ruth? Are you ready?
Perfect.
Let's
Ready.
go.
For those joining us for Buzz Reaction for the first time, today we are continuing our conversation with our 4 volleyball officiating experts that are from the Pac-12, Big 12, Sun Belt, Mountain West, and knowledgeable at the FIVB, NCAA, USAV adult and junior and high school, as well as assigning and interpreting the rules. So let's get back to Joan and let's hear from the experts.
Thanks. So my question is, how do I get to join your gig live? I would like to go to one of those clinics. Let me tell you, if you're teaching the gospel on the student athlete side and coaching side, I think you need somebody with the rules. I've always wanted to be Mike Pereira on Fox with football, but I don't know if that's in the cards. Anyway, Ann, I wouldn't take that away from you because you are the queen. So Ruth, one other thing that we talked about, we didn't provide any video for you, and this could blow up, but it's taking the ball over on 2 when you're front row. We can talk about back row in just a second. But when an athlete goes up, maybe they think they're going to joust, but maybe they just want to have a little trickery. Of course, they're subjected and they're at risk for a double contact. And so we have to make sure that our training says that, and that coaches understand that even though I go up and I pose blocking, I look like I'm blocking, that ball's not coming from an opponent, it's coming from a teammate. And so the risk of a double contact is there. So we did talk about that with the coaches, showed a couple videos, and we're seeing it a little more and more. And do you want to say anything? And then maybe Brian and Kaili talk about that move.
Yeah, that one is always, I think, to officials, and Kaili and Brian can talk about it, a surprise. You're not expecting that, so your eyes aren't maybe where they need to be. It happens so quickly that you can get caught off guard. And Brian, Kaili, just talk about when you're surprised by an action or a movement an athlete makes at the net.
Well, if I can add to that, the surprise element, the setters are great at that, especially at the higher levels of play, the deception. And so we get into a rhythm as referees, understanding how they're passing the ball and how they're playing the ball. And then the setter decides this time she's going to take it over instead. And we're not quite ready for that. And I don't know how you can prepare for it. But interestingly for me, when they send that second ball over, I think sometimes it catches the opposing coach off guard as well, because I don't hear as many complaints about no calls on that, even if I'm like, oh crap, I should have called that. I don't hear as many complaints from the bench as I sometimes think I might. It's just a strange, it's almost as if coaches are allowing a little bit of leeway on the second ball over if there's a bit of an ugly contact in there. So I don't know, Kaili, have you had that kind of experience?
Definitely. Like you were saying, it can surprise us. It can surprise everybody. I think the ones that they have more heads up about is that third contact set over the net where someone just hacks it over the net. And as officials, I know that we do our best to be a little bit more tight on balls that are sent to the other side of the net. So if it happens that first time, that might be the antenna up, and then make sure that they don't do it the second time and that it's clean. That's usually how it goes.
Well, Brian, just before 2 weeks ago, before our show last week, Mick had sent out to us a video of exactly that play at the international level, at the top level men's game. All right. And the setter went up there, made it look like it was going to be a joust. All right. And as the opponent blocker started to come over the net, he just grabbed the ball and threw it to the floor. And I mean, it could have been a double hit. It could have been a lift because he held on to the ball. I mean, it could have been any number of things. It was really done well, but I mean, it was an impossible play to defend. You couldn't block it because he literally took the ball all right, in one spot and moved it to another spot and threw it down on the floor.
I think your comment about the men's game, I think we see that kind of play more in the men's game than on the women's side. The experiences I've had anyway, the men are the setters are coming up at the net and at the last second turning and dumping it straight down the front of the net. And I see more often at the high level in the women's game, they're shooting it into deep corners. So it's kind of, it's the same contact, but they're putting the ball in different places. And I do agree that they catch you by surprise with that.
We would identify that as a deep dish slam dunk.
Slam dunk, yeah, true on that one.
And
Okay,
Mick-
so recently I saw on Facebook that it was a foreign player that was a pin hitter that was doing a 3-minute drill to show you how to do that
No.
by turning and doing behind his back and going down the line. So now they're teaching it. And so therefore now anybody can go look, oh, I'm going to do that.
Well,
Hey,
and
I
that's
think-
part of the problem.
Yeah.
What's happening in the men's game, it's going to happen in the women's game
Right.
because it's you know, they're getting to a point where it almost looks like jungle volleyball. Anything goes.
Right. Yeah. Backyard barbecue. So,
Yeah.
Mick, I think I sent you that one, but I also sent it to,
shared it with our group.
yeah. Well, I also sent it to Sandy Steele in Scotland, whom I met at the Olympics and is in charge of training officials. And I said, okay, can you tell this? Because obviously there was no whistle. And I said, is this legal? And he said, no. And so I think, I don't know if he had ever seen that video before. And yet I sent you a few of them. I think we have a few ourselves in the file that they're doing unbelievable things with the ball. So going up, so if I'm jousting you, Mick, and I don't know if you saw that one where he's actually taken it and there's a hesitation, he just puts it over and has his way with the ball and wins it without really being a true tied up joust. I mean, it was awful. So, Kaili, you could have called 3 seconds in the lane. I'm just saying that's how long he had that ball.
That's
So,
Well, and the one you were talking about, the player had his hand all the way around the ball.
yeah.
So he took the ball, took it into the blocker's hands, pushed it along, didn't push it and let go of it, pushed it along, then got it over here and just threw it down. And there was a touch. And that was, you know, like you see in the NBA above the rim. I mean, that's what it's going to go to as the athleticism gets greater. You're going to have more and more of these people that can do different things because they're up in the air longer and higher.
Yeah. Brian, anything more on the international? I mean, are you getting clinicked on this type of ball? Or
no, the training tends to be, although there's some online training stuff, it hasn't focused on this topic. But when we go to tournaments, to be honest, it's a little bit of flavor of the day kind of thing. Whoever your referee manager is or the referee coaches who are on site, whatever points of emphasis they want to bring forward is what we get to hear about. If they happen to know that one of the teams or has a couple of players or a player that does this, then they may make that a point of emphasis. But aside from that, I'd say in general, no. But I do, based on experiences, I do notice that there's not as much of the power tipping at the international level as I see collegiately here.
It's interesting you say that because, you know, Marsha Alterman always says rules du jour, it's whatever the weekend holds. And internationally kind of has that little tag on them, which is unfortunate. But and anything on, I know if you showed these videos and you have them, your rules committee would, I mean, there's no discussion. It's a catch throw. I mean, period.
Exactly.
So my question would be, how does all these rules interpretations now filter down to all these juniors who maybe 5% could probably do some of those things, but the other 95%, especially at the 12 and 13 level, because they have a hard enough time returning service, 12-year-olds with their hands.
And you go to all the meetings. You answer that.
No, I definitely, I meet with the National Federation. I go to their rules meetings and I share what we're thinking, the NCAA is thinking of changing or implementing, and they let us know where they're at. I mean, certainly it's an entirely different game when you're talking high school versus college versus, and I attend the USA volleyball meeting and listen to them talk about juniors the entire meeting, but that's neither here nor there. But we do, the three rules editors are pretty close, and we share what language we're using and what we're thinking of doing, changing, amending. And that's, of course, after we survey our members. I mean, I get the survey from every NCAA coach that wants to turn it in, and it's about a 30-page document because everyone can make changes and comments and all the rule changes we're thinking of. And then they always say, here's what rule you should change. And just out of curiosity, I would love to know what does this panel, if they could change a rule in women's volleyball right now, what would it be? Or amend or alter or do something to?
Well, I have a pet peeve, and the other master coaches know that, and that is that every group, international men, have nothing to do with 12-year-old girls or high school girls. And I think that the rules need to be for whatever group. I don't like an overall rule. I just don't think, and it certainly shouldn't come from men's international down. It should. My answer is if high school girls or club volleyball is the major group, then if we're going to spread rules, it should come from them. That's our golden goose in our sport. And I just like whatever the group needs should be the rules for that group. Not because kids aren't going to play on the Olympic team. They don't need to see that. And even what we're discussing today is a rare and a small group. The number one rule for most of volleyball that I see is simply, double contact for the setter. That's the one that's called the most for high school girls or club. And so that's, where I just want to make sure that we're not developing rules that aren't needed for the particular group. That's my feeling.
So
I think that's a good point, Brian, because with the different organizations, and I'm sure there are people in the audience are going, can't we have one set of rules? You know what? Get over yourself. No, we can't, because people make money writing rule books. Okay. And there are organizations that do the best they can to modify or make sure they adapt to just what you're talking about, Brian, for the constituents that are playing the game. And, the net fault rule in USA volleyball trickled down from FIVB. It was the top of the tape. And then they realized that wasn't good skill wise. Plus kids were getting, I don't want to say injured because I don't have the data on that, but it was just causing havoc to the game. And then they adopted the NCAA rule, which is great. But everybody borrows from everyone else, but certainly whatever develops the children to become adults, if they continue to play, is really where we're at. And you're right. What we gave you today is kind of the tip of the iceberg of the very, very good collegiate athletes. And yet it's becoming more prevalent, especially with that power tip. We've got to call those shot puts. We just can't let this game become, like Bob said, backyard catch and throw.
Well, let's move forward a little bit on that, though, because the collegiate women play a different set of rules than the collegiate men. The collegiate men play an international set of rules for the most part. I'm not sure what rules that they've added to that, but they're pretty close. And if you watched Ohio State's women's team play this spring, they were one of the more exciting teams on defense, being able to run down balls. The men were very fun to watch in the Final Four or Final Seven this year, whatever you want to call that group that played there, but because they could go after balls all the way around. And yet we don't let collegiate women pursue around the net. How do you justify that? I would think if I was a woman and I was playing collegiately, I would want the freedom of being able to use my athleticism to do that.
Right. I'm going to dish this to Ann because there was data on that and it surely was discussed. But I'm going to say one thing, just remember the facilities in Division III or Division II. Remember the tightness of now there's parameters, but
will depend
right.
on the facility. And there
Right.
was a amount of a distance that had to be available, and then you were allowed to play the pursuit.
Correct.
But then you guys
Yeah.
took it out. So
Yeah.
why?
Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, I've started getting videos sent from officials and coaches where the collisions between athletes and officials were causing bone breaks, concussions, some serious injuries. And then there was one where two athletes from different teams both dove for a ball in a pursuit. One thought it was going to land, the ball's going to land on her side of the net. The other player thought it was going to land on hers, dove, and just hit head to head. It was pretty bad. And at that point, the committee felt, you know what, let's play the game within the confines of your side of the court and take it from there. We were just starting to get too many injuries. I mean, I have a video of an official fracturing his humerus, which is probably one of the hardest bones to fracture in your body from being hit by a pursuing player. So that was a reasoning the committee decided to eliminate that.
Well, I just think that the women should have same rights as the guys do, and as a women's coach, knowing what the players say in the huddle, you hear that from time to time. They sense that the down official sometimes gets in their way, but that's their opinion. I'm sure you guys would take another side to that. Bob, talk about this. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to add to that. Interesting that the rule was removed a few years ago. Has it been 4 years now, Ann? Is that right? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
Yeah, I think at least 4.
Yeah. And even though it's 4 years gone, the number of times that we see players on the court still try to make that play is interesting, even though the rule has been gone for that length of time. Sorry, Coach, go ahead.
No, that's a good point. I like that because that's the freedom the players want to be able to play the game. I mean, I'm just speaking from feedback from the players. Bob's got an interesting one though for you on screening. Bob, why don't you bring up your screening thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to get the opinion of the officials on screening, because going from the women's game a few years ago and then, going back into the men's game, all right, that was one of the first things. I spent years, all right, not teaching my players how to screen, and being able to tweak teach them the rule, basically. This is what the rule says, so you can do it this way and still create a screen, because I felt like that was unsportsmanlike. So I wouldn't teach my players that. All right, I go to the men's game and everybody is screening. I mean, every team is screening. All right, and their interpretation is that it's not screening because the interpretation was as long as you can see the contact of the ball. Well, why in God's name would they continue to do that, all right, if it really only mattered that you saw the contact of the ball? It doesn't. The approach angle of the serve, all right, the speed at which the player is going after the ball. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen prior to the contact that help you determine where the serve is going to be made. All right, yet, I mean, just take the rule out. Just get rid of the rule. There is no screening, but the interpretation that's being used now is just, in my opinion, foolish.
Yep. So Ann, give us the interpretation and then I'll add something here.
I mean, our rule just says players on the serving team must not be able to take action to prevent receiving team players from screening, from seeing the contact of the service and the path of the ball. Coaches, you guys have the best view when a team screens because your camera's in the end zone and you can see it. I'll let Kaili and Brian talk, but the officials are in the worst possible position to see that screen. Go ahead, Brian or Kaili.
Yeah,
Kaili,
four things need to
defer,
be in
yes.
place. Yeah, position of the players in the serving team, like you said, path of the serve, like you said, speed of the serve, trajectory of the serve. Does it go high? Do they have enough time to get it? Does it go right over their heads? And a lot of times, yeah, do we want to be the screen police? No, it's like jewelry, right? So it is one of the tougher things to just step in and do, especially when no one's complaining about it. Now, when a captain or coach comes up and brings our attention to it, that it's affecting their players, or you see the players, like jockeying for position, trying to see the serve, and someone brings it to our attention, then yes, we like to address it. But no, we don't like to insert ourselves in any match and bring attention to us being over officious. And that's one of the rules that we feel that way about, honestly.
Kaili, let me tell you, that sounds good, but that doesn't happen that way. All right. I mean, I brought it to the attention. I was clearly upset about the fact that they were allowing screening. All right. I was told, all right, by a number of officials that all three elements that Ann just went over have to be present, not just one or two of them. All three had to be present to become a screen. So as long as they were jumping and you could see contact, then that element eliminates the screen. All right. But there really is a screen. All right, because you can't see a lot of things. You can't see the path of the server. All right, you can't see the speed at which they're going after the ball, or the position of the ball in relationship to the body of the server. All those things help a receiver determine where the ball is going to go. And the main thing is, why would they do it if it wasn't helping them? All right.
Okay, now hang on 1 second. I got to interject here because the king of screening is on this call.
Okay, must be John Foreman.
All right. And then we got to come back to this, Ruth.
Okay, my delay tactics and coaches box.
Oh, no, wait, don't move on. I just have to say this. Coaches, we cannot legislate ethics. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is, if you would stop, tell me why you do this. I'm a coach. Brian's next to me. Kaili's next to me. And you all teach this while my team is serving.
Can't do that.
Wait, listen to me. Who blocks like this? Who goes like this?
If you're 6'9".
As soon as the ball, listen to me. As soon as the ball is served, y'all go like this. So what are you doing teaching little kids to do this? Oh, well, I want to make sure their hands are up. I want to make sure that they know that they're going to block next. Stop the antics and we'll stop the screening. I'm serious. Just pull the hands down and don't fill in the gaps, Mick Haley, by putting your back row players in, you know what I'm talking about?
In the gaps.
I know.
Absolutely.
You're cheating.
You know what's interesting on the FIVB side, we just had a recent rules discussion about screening, and their rules are, I wouldn't say it's more relaxed than what we're playing here on either NCAA or the USA side, but they do make it more difficult for a screen to be called. And the logic, because they have data, is that the receiving team is at a greater percentage for siding out immediately. And the serving team is obviously at a disadvantage. So giving them that slight bit of edge is one of the reasons that they changed the rule, where multiple criteria needed to be met in order for the screen to be called, because they're already, as the serving team, at a disadvantage.
It would seem like.
Wait, Nick, one other thing, because Bob brought up a good point. Why don't we get rid of it? Bob, I'm just going to tell you, I teach and train high school officials. We get rid of screening. These coaches are going to put their players wherever they want. We're not even getting overlap anyway. And so now we can't discern whether the setter's front row or back row, or she's just faking everybody out. So that's why it's got to stay.
Got to memorize those rotations.
Yeah.
Joan, I understand that part of it, but and it hasn't really happened too much in the women's game, because I watched in national championships this year and didn't see.
I know, because Mick has retired.
Right.
But in the men's game, they are just going where they want to go. I mean, they're clearly blocking about a third of the court, and I'm okay with that if we're just not going to have a screening rule. Because then that's part of the game. And I understand the data on, the receiving team has an advantage over the serving team.
Yeah, but I don't understand that data, because people want offense. Pro tennis, all the serving misses, they don't want to see people get ace. They want to see play. So the reason to screen or not screen should be your choice. I think you're right. And shouldn't be something the officials worry about. But Ruth, why don't you get your.
Okay, I've been waiting for the women's rule here.
Yeah, we'll add Brian into this on the challenges too.
Okay, so coach's box, delay tactics, and challenge. Brian, what's your beef?
Well, I wish challenges were, I just got 1 year of it. I wish it was earlier. I think it helps calm down coaches and doesn't put refs in bad situations. I think it's a great thing. I'd like it to be quicker, but we got bad examples in all sports. I got to say something about the screening. I coached over 40 years, and I never knew anything about screening. I never did it, never knew anybody was doing it. I think I was a little out of it. And I also wanted to say one premise about this whole show. The premise, there's two premises. One, if we win, it's all because of coaching. And when we lose, it's the referee's fault. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And second is we know everything, especially.
Hey, Brian, this is delay tactics. Hello.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's the women's coaches box.
I really like the challenge system. We always want it to be quicker. We would love to have more money in the game to put better cameras in there. I'd like to see a third person, maybe even a scorekeeper trained to do it, to make it faster. But I think it's a great part of the game. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, coach's box. Okay, there is a coach's box because we've been talking about it even from last week, but it doesn't seem like it's necessarily really enforced, or some people get to use it a little bit more for delay tactics. So we're interested in the official side of it.
And
I saw in the NBA 2 nights ago where a player not only got in the box, got at the end line and came on the court and fouled another guy. So good luck for coach's box when we're seeing pro sports. Yeah, I was going to give you that yellow card. I wanted everybody to know I had them, but I couldn't find them.
Well, I got the mute button. So you guys, officials, you have 2 minutes to discuss coach's box and delay tactics.
Well, our coaches box is the extension of the attack line,
Right.
the very last dot. So you can't go beyond that, and you can't go closer to the center of the court beyond in the substitution zone. Otherwise, you can roam that entire sideline as much as you want. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of the officials appreciate when the head coach goes to the very end of the bench, sits down and coaches from there. But Kaili, Brian, your thoughts?
I'm good. I'm good with the way our rules are. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
go Kaili.
Well,
No, go ahead,
how about the
Brian. Go
number of
ahead.
Coaches, though. How about the number of coaches? You guys, at one point when Jim McLaughlin was coaching at Washington, he had all 3 assistant coaches plus half the time his data volley person out on the court up to the 5-foot area or whatever it is away from the court. Not only is it bad for spectator view of what's going on, but it's a lot of voices and a lot of sideline activity, not to mention what the players are doing at the end line. They've gotten really creative. I'd like to make a video of all the different things that the end zone crew can do there who are not in the game. But I think
you're right, Mick. And if I were queen, it would be the head coach only. No one else is allowed to talk to the officials.
Okay.
I put that on the survey about 6-7 years ago to say only one designated coach may address the referees or approach the sideline. And you can imagine what the survey results said. No one wanted that to happen. It wasn't even a discussion point at the rules meeting. The results were so overwhelmingly, let us go where we want to go and do what we want to do.
Bro, I wanted to throw in, I forgot to say something. Let's all get the challenge where the coach gets the challenge back if they're right.
Yeah.
That's all.
Just the 2 challenges with the challenge coming back.
Challenge coming back.
And can you just address that real quickly?
You
Because
heard it here first. The committee is going to allow a variation or form of an experimental rule this fall, because next spring is a rule change year and we didn't get to have a full slate last fall to challenge, and we didn't have enough games in the spring that the committee felt it was fair that half the teams didn't get to use it. So there'll be a variation of that. There's a couple suggestions out there. We haven't decided yet, but it may be you get 2 challenges total for the match. But if the call's reverse, in other words, you're correct, you keep that challenge. So as long as you continue to be correct, you keep that challenge. Another variation is the same way we're doing it now, but your very last challenge, if you're correct, you get to keep it and continue on along with the bonus challenge in the fifth. So one of those two will probably be used in the fall experimentally.
Okay, well, our time is up. And
Hey,
thanks
Ruth,
yes,
Ruth, I
yes,
just want to thank you.
you're just like
and
Brian.
No,
You are a double of Brian. You have
This is Joan-
15
No, no, no,
seconds.
no, no.
Let Joan
I
close the
have
show.
a message. I have a message
You
for all the
better get it
coaches.
out.
Without officials, it's just recess. I love you all. Thanks.
Okay, well, our time is up and thanks for joining us today for our extended buzz reaction. We would like to thank our 4 officials that are experts, as I am sure all of our viewers enjoyed hearing the official side of our sport. For those viewers that want to be on our buzz reaction guest list, jump over to VB MasterCoaches Instagram. For those coaches that are interested in our consulting services, please email our link in our VB MasterCoaches Instagram. Thanks for joining us today. And we want to see you next week on the buzz. And be sure to sign up for our, guess what? Volleyball Master Coaches in Abilene, Texas, June 4th and 5th for our championship skills series by going to www.abileneysa.org. And Joan, we're waiting for you to show up.